Good evening, folks, and welcome to the Pro Wrestling Chat. I'm your host, Sean Patrick Erschen, and this week we are discussing the knockouts of Impact Wrestling, the storied history of the women's division in Impact Wrestling, which I feel is the best women's division in pro wrestling. So I was very excited to get a copy of the latest issue of Pro Wrestling Illustrated, the most prestigious wrestling magazine of all time, and to see the knockouts on the cover. That was amazing, because, Pro Wrestling Illustrated doesn't always focus so much on Impact Wrestling. To see the knockouts really get their due here is just amazing. So yeah, you got all the best of today. You got Rosemary Masaslamovich, Mickie James, who at the time of this magazine was the Knockouts champion. You got Giselle Shaw, you got Jordynne Grace, and my favorite of today, Deonna Purrazzo, who is the current reigning Impact Knockouts champion, and Savannah Evans there. So I'm going to go over a little bit of the articles and talk a little bit about the storied history of Impact Knockouts division. And yeah, you gotta talk about the GOAT, Gail Kim, she was part of the creation of the Knockouts division. She was one of the first original Knockouts, way back when the division first started, and her legendary feud, of course, with Awesome Kong is phenomenal. Yeah, we've seen her win the Knockouts Championship, 7 times, I believe? At one time, she was the longest reigning, and she's the first ever Knockouts champion. And right now, she's the corporate executive in Impact Wrestling. Not only does she run the Knockouts division, but she's like one of the high-ups in the company, which is just amazing to see that, So yeah, let's take a little bit of a look at the Knockouts article here. Yeah, look at that. Great spread there. All the stars of today, which include a few veterans. You got Taylor Wilde there, who recently came back, she was last around, she left somewhere around 2013, I think. Shortly after the Hogan-Bischoff era came in, and now here she is, Knockouts Tag Team Champion with Killian King. And I love her she kind of reinvented herself. She's like a witch now, real goth look to her. She totally reinvented her character, and she's just fantastic. She's better than ever. So props to Taylor Wilde, big time. And you got the amazing Mickie James, of course, who's just legendary. I mean, it's hard to say whether she had a bigger career in WWE or Impact Wrestling, because she's had huge runs in Impact Wrestling and WWE, so it's hard to say there. It's almost like even. But yeah, her recent run, she really proved herself that she can still go with the best in the business. So Mickie James is just amazing to me, And you got Rosemary. So if you guys have not seen the new show Diary on the Impact Plus network or YouTube, it was so great to see her like out of character, because the character of Rosemary is just wild, and gothic and, rock and roll, punk rock, but and she always talks to herself in the third person, it's we do this, we are in the undead realm, She's such a out there character. So to see her in Diary, just like opening up with her emotions and just talking out of character, was really cool. So check out Diary with Rosemary. You got Killer Kelly there, you got Jessica, who that's kind of her new gimmick. She also reinvented herself. She used to be Jessica Havoc. And you got Alicia Edwards, who is the wife of Eddie Edwards. You got Taya Valkyrie, who left Impact shortly after this article, unfortunately. But yeah, Taya Valkyrie's great. Still the longest reigning Impact Knockouts World Champion, Taya Valkyrie. No one has beat that yet. And there's Gail Kim, yeah, and you got Killer Kelly. Let's see. And they talk about some of the legends of the Knockouts division that helped, shape what it is today, including Taryn Terrell, who was a referee for a while, and then she went from a referee to being a wrestler, and she was formerly at WWE, but she had a much bigger run in Impact. I think she had such a great match, one of the great matches of the Knockouts division, when she fought Gail Kim at Slammiversary. That was amazing. And you gotta talk about Tracy Brooks, of course, one of the original Knockouts, who was just gorgeous, and she's married to Frankie Kazarian. Yeah, she was amazing. You gotta talk about Sarita, Lacey Von Erich, who was with the Beautiful People for a while. Angelina Love is not really talked about on here. I think she's mentioned once. I'm surprised they don't really mention Angelina Love. So there's a few they miss here. Talk about Daphne, of course, who obviously is a huge inspiration to Rosemary. She had that goth feel. She's the scream queen. She always had like the makeup on. She was very goth. I love Daphne, so rest in peace to Daphne. She passed away recently. She actually was with WCW, back in the day. Winter, who was Katarina Waters, I remember. You got Giselle Shaw, who's one of today's stars. Really cool. And yeah, great shot of the great Mickie James, absolute legend. I love Mickie James so much, and she's such a great a role model for Impact Wrestling, I think. And yeah, I gotta talk about Deonna Purrazzo, who is the Knockouts champion today, and she's a 3-time Knockouts champion, former Knockouts Tag Team Champion with Chelsea Green now, who is in WWE making waves. Yeah, I think Deonna Purrazzo is the best technical wrestler in women's wrestling right now, and the best character. I absolutely love the way she carries herself. She absolutely carries herself like a champion, That's why I consider her to be the best in the business right now. She's beautiful. She always is dressed to the nines. She just has a swagger about her. She has such a confidence. Even though she is a villainess most of the time. Although she might be making a little bit of a face turn recently. But yeah, she's usually always the villain. But she's so great. She's so confident. She's great on the mic. Everything about her is just phenomenal. She's the best. Yeah, so let me talk a little bit out of the history from my point of view, because I did watch a little bit in the early days of TNA. I wasn't a huge fan at that time, but I did watch it here and then. Because I thought it was kind of bad still in the early days. It felt like the dying days of WCW, in my opinion. Because they did have some of the leftover talent from WCW and from the dying days. You had AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels came from the dying days of WCW. They had a lot of, veterans around, like Roddy Piper was around there. They had a lot of people coming in, like Lex Luger at one point. They had a lot of old veterans who were way past their prime showing up to, give them a little bit of star power, I guess. But I feel like once they got Sting, that really legitimized TNA. As far as the knockouts go, in the early days, they didn't really have a women's division until people like Taylor Wilde came in, and Awesome Kong, and obviously Gail Kim, who made a division out of it, you know. And once they did, it was just like amazing, showing what women can do in this business, you know. That they can be tough, they can wrestle too, you know. They don't just have to be eye candy, like, you know, at that time, that's what WWE was doing. The women were just, you know, objects, you know, like Trish Stratus and Lita and all them. Who were very talented, but a lot of time they weren't used right. They were just like used like eye candy, you know, put in these ridiculous, like, you know, broad panties matches, and then matches would always be like 5 minutes. There just was never a lot of focus on them. But here in TNA, you had great matches going on, you know, for the Knockouts Championship. And they had a tag team division established as well, too, which was really cool. You didn't have that in WWE for a long time. And it always pisses me off when, you know, during the Hogan-Bischoff era, when they just got rid of the women's tag team division. Now, why the hell did they do that, you know? One of the many mistakes of that era, you know? Oh, man. But when I really started watching, I have to be honest, was when Hulk Hogan came in. But the women's division at that time was great. You know, you had Angelina Love, you had the beautiful people with Velvet Sky, and Madison Rayne. Madison Rayne, one of the great knockouts of all time, 5-time knockouts champion. And you had Tara, who was my personal favorite knockout of all time. She was Victoria in WWE, of course, but she had just as great a run in TNA, I think, you know, being a 5-time knockouts champion. She was just amazing. I feel like she doesn't get the credit she deserves of being such a legendary knockout. On top of being, she's like Mickie James to me. She had just as great a career in Impact as she did in WWE. So yeah, I see her in the same light as I see like Mickie James, you know. And she did make an appearance recently to support Mickie James, because they have their little podcast together, the GAW. And they're like best friends, you know, her and Mickie James, and SoCal Val, who's kind of a valet and backstage interviewer in TNA back in the day. They have great shows, so check out GAW, you know, Grown Ass Women podcast. Yeah, but Tara came back recently to support her, showing up backstage to support Mickie in her last rodeo run there. And that was great to see her. And she ended up making a surprise spot in a tag team match. You know, she got in the gear and she was ready to do her thing, but she didn't actually end up wrestling. She just came in and gave Giselle Shaw the Widow's Peak there. I wish she would come back. I want to see her come back full blown. I want to see Tara back in Impact Wrestling. I don't think it's going to happen, but I can dream, you know. She still looked great, and she hit that Widow's Peak like a champ, you know. I think she could still do it. I think she could have one last run, just like Mickie James, you know. But yeah, Tara is one of my all-time favorites. And I feel like that era was such a strong era. You had so many great characters like ODB, One Dirty Bitch. She's great. She's hilarious. Those grabbing her boobs and drinking her flask, you know, hanging out on the trailer. She's awesome. And so many great matches, like when Mickie James first came in. Well, I shouldn't say first came in, because Mickie James was around in the early days. But she made her big comeback, you know, after she was in WWE and everything. Had such a big run there. She did come to TNA Impact Wrestling back in 2011, I think, when, started the Hogan Bischoff era. And she had an amazing run, doing the hardcore country thing, She won the Knockouts Championship, and she had a great match with Tara at that main event at Impact one day, and it was like in the cage match, and that was awesome. She jumped from the top of the steel cage. That was a fantastic match, and that was one of the first times where I saw the women being in the main event. And you see that a lot today now, but you didn't see that back then, in WWE either. You didn't see women in the main event, And now you see them main event in pay-per-views and everything, which is amazing, Yeah. I think all of that is because of the Impact Wrestling Knockouts division. They're the ones, to me, that paved the way. To me, they're responsible for the so-called women's revolution that they talk about in WWE. I think the women's revolution started with Impact Wrestling, not WWE, in my opinion. But yeah, so many great stars have gone through Impact Wrestling, and I think they're just stronger than ever. Like it says on the top, stronger, faster, better than ever. You got Jordan, Grace, Rosemary, Mickie James. They have a phenomenal roster, and just recently they acquired Trinity, who was Naomi in WWE, so very excited to get her on the roster, and man, it's making a lot of buzz for Impact Wrestling, and I'm loving it, And she is so happy to be in Impact Wrestling, and that was great to see her in interviews and how excited she is about coming to Impact and making an impact. And she's doing her thing with the, Feel the Glow thing. I think she's going to be a great addition, and maybe I'm hoping that Mercedes Moné might follow, who was formerly Sasha Banks in WWE. And wow, what a controversial exit they made in WWE, where they just, at the time, they were the women's tag team champions in WWE, and they just dropped the titles on Vince's desk and walked out on the WWE and didn't come back. So that was very controversial. And of course, Sasha Banks now goes by Mercedes Moné, and she's currently in New Japan Pro Wrestling. But she did show up in Impact in the audience recently to support Trinity in Impact Wrestling. So I would love to see Mercedes Moné in Impact Wrestling. Make it happen. If you had those two together, wow, that would be amazing. What a spotlight we would get on Impact Wrestling. So many people would talk about that. But yeah, a lot of people are buzzing about Trinity coming in. So that's great to see. So yeah, what a solid lineup we have now in Impact Wrestling in the Knockouts division. Right now, it's the best in the world, in my opinion. So, and I think when you talk about the best women's division of all time, to me, it's the Knockouts, baby. There were a couple times where WWE did take over in that area. There was a time when I think it was 2016, which was the lowest of the low years for Impact, so, they lost it there, unfortunately, because everything they were doing at that time was freaking terrible, except maybe the Hardy Boys thing was pretty wild, but outside of that, nothing good was going on. They had the Dollhouse with Taryn Terrell, I think, and it was okay, but it was just bad, there was not a lot of focus as much as there had been in the past. So I'd say 2015, 2016 were the worst years in Impact as far as the Knockouts division. I feel at that time WWE was doing better because you had Charlotte and Sasha Banks main eventing and having phenomenal matches, and there was a lot of focus on the women's division. As there is now, there's still a lot of focus, but I don't feel it's as strong lately as the Knockouts division. The Knockouts division